the stupidest person you've ever met? And what story perfectly sums up their stupidity? Story 1. One night during high school, my friend and I got invited to a party. I didn't drive back then, so my friend picked me up. All went well on our way to the party, but on the way back, however, he got pulled over. As we were pulling to the side of the road, I told him that I was going to pretend to be asleep, since I was the passenger. Anyway, I hear the cop get out of his cop car, walk towards our car, and stop at the window, but doesn't say anything. I can feel the brightness of his flashlight, but I don't hear him or my friend say anything. After about what seemed like an eternity, I decided to open my eyes to see what was going on. That's when I see my friend, the guy who is driving, pretending like he is sleeping too. Story 2. I worked with a man named Roy, and he had theories about how to live life. Economics. One day he turned to me and the other member of the crew with the sentence, "You boys want to know how you get nice things? You go to the store and you finance everything. New furniture, new appliances, televisions, stereos, everything. Then you don't make any payments and you don't show up for your court date. They'll end up garnishing your wages, but they take way less than the payments would have been." Then about a week later, "You boys want to know how you buy a house? You apply for every credit card you can possibly get, you take out your entire balance in cash from all of them, and you use that for your down payment. Then you don't make any payments, and you don't show up for your court date." Edit. I last saw Roy 10 years ago. At that time, he was living in his early 50s, was rocking a gray/blonde skullet, and lived in a hamlet in the province of Saskatchewan. Story 3. My friend's sister was 20 and pregnant. She said something about how upset she was that her vagina would be ruined. I jokingly said, "Maybe he'll come out of your instead." But she didn't understand what I meant, so asked, "Can they come out of there too?" I thought she was joking, so I just said that it's a 50-50 shot. She thought I was serious and asked her doctor if he could tell if the baby was going to come out of her vagina or Edit. I know technically you can tear from your vagina to your ass in labor, meaning technically, since it kind of becomes one whole, the baby would come out of the vagina. But she didn't think this. She thought she would shit out the baby. Story 4. The first time I met Ben was in Improv 101. I was only taking the class for fun, but about half the people there were aspiring actors, including Ben. On the first day, the teacher had us all play this silly game to break the ice, so we'd all remember each other's names. The rules are pretty simple. At first, pick an adjective that starts with the same letter as your first name. Secondly, introduce yourself using adjective plus first name. And last, do a simple gesture that goes with it. So everyone is going around the circle, introducing themselves as Daring Daniel and Lonely Lauren and Awesome Alex, until we get to Ben, since he introduces himself as Surfer Ben. He proceeded to misunderstand at least one key element of every game or exercise for the rest of the class. I have no clue how this man functions in daily life. He has since managed to get a few featured extra roles on TV, though. "Oh man, Surfer Ben sounds like he's really riding the wave of life on a boogie board." I'm no improv expert, but it seems like he's got a natural talent for making people laugh, even if it's unintentional. Maybe that'll be his secret to success in getting a bunch of TV roles. Story 5. My brother is genuinely the stupidest person I know. He has broken his arms 5 times, 3 for the right arm and 2 for the left. This is how he did it. Firstly, at the age of 7, dancing on a table, fell off. 8 years later, smoking funny leaves with a friend, a cop shows up and he runs, jumps a fence, shorts get caught, and he falls out of them onto his arm. Then at the age of 17, ran in front of his friend's truck as it went down the road at around 30 miles per hour. But that's not all. 2 years after that, at the age of 19, he was trying to hide from someone and jumped over a couch and somehow broke his arm. I don't remember how he broke it the other time. I just know it's been 5 times. He was also arrested for possession of a firearm when he is not legally allowed to own one. It was his friend's firearm, and he pointed it at a cop. Furthermore, he got expelled from my high school twice. He also got expelled from public school on the last day of school for writing "a pregnant bitch, call it a on a final. Additionally to all of this, he had 2 lines in a mandatory play, but he still messed it up. While in prison, he got a marijuana leaf tattooed on his face. Next, upon seeing him for the first time after prison, he said, "Mom thinks I'm getting it removed, but I'm only going to make it better. I'm also going to get Chinese lettering down my face." He also dropped out of high school before finishing the 10th grade, not because he had to, just because he didn't like school and wanted to do drugs instead. He ended with a 3 in history and a 6 in math. I don't know what his other grades were. When he was 15, my uncle was 30. It took half an hour to explain to him why he would not always be half of my uncle's age. All in all, he genuinely believed that the Ebola scare a couple of years ago was the beginning of the zombie apocalypse. Story 6. An old coworker of mine was helping me move, and while we were carrying a couch, he dropped it. Thinking he was hurt, I asked if he was okay, and with the most serious and frightening look in his eyes, he said, pointing, "Look, it's the moon, and it's daytime." By the way, he was 25 at the time. Story 7. There was a troubled kid I went to high school with who struggled with school but had friends. However, he began drinking a lot and going down a bad way. Once he decided to photocopy the front and back side of a $20 bill, cut it out of normal paper, and glue the 2 halves with Elmer's glue. What's even more sad is that to test his new money, he went to the gas station and bought some gum. And it actually worked? So in his mind, it must have meant that it was foolproof. So he then tried to go and deposit the glued up money at an actual bank. He was obviously found out and arrested. I don't know where he is now, but I'm assuming he's making similar life choices. Reply 1. My flatmate at university did something similar. He put a whole bunch of effort into forging 10-pound notes, research paper, found some spray adhesive that was just the right consistency, got hold of a very sharp craft knife and cutting board, figuring out how to fake the metal strip and watermark with kitchen foil and crafty printing. He had an excellent printer. His copies were pretty good, but by no means perfect. So he and his accomplice Joe decided to keep to 2 simple rules. Only use them in dimly lit bars when it was too busy for staff to check every note, and only ever take 1 copy out of the house. That way, if they were caught, they could claim it was an honest mistake. They got them in their change, etc. They'd buy 1 drink with the dodgy 10, pocket the change, and nip back to the flat to grab another. In fact, it worked so well that they got cocky. One day, my flatmate was out with Joe in a crowded area in broad daylight when they decided to roll a joint. Joe took a bag of weed out of his pocket and passed it over, right in front of 2 police officers. Of course, the officers stopped and searched them and found over 200 pounds worth of forged notes, all with the same serial number. Story 8. My ex-husband. We were playing rock, paper, scissors to decide who had to go change the baby. Best 2 of 3. In round 1, I throw scissors and he throws rocks. "I win," he proclaimed. In round 2, I throw paper and he throws a rock. "I win," he says again. Paper beats rock," I tell him. His response? "No, a rock beats everything." I spend like 5 minutes trying to wrap my mind around this. Finally, I ask him what's the point of even playing. In total sincerity, he says, "To have fun." Edit. Sadly, he was not trolling me and actually was completely serious. I know it's hard to believe, but in all fairness, he was born and raised in Florida. Yes, I changed the baby. I did pretty much everything involving the baby after that. As for my own level of intelligence and that of my son, I think he said it best himself when, at 4 years old, he said to me, "Daddy can't help it. What's your excuse?" Oh wow, your ex-husband's unique take on rock, paper, scissors really adds a whole new layer of strategy to the game, or maybe just confusion. I can't believe he was totally serious about it. But hey, at least he had the having fun part right. And kudos to your little one being wise beyond his years with that comment. Story 9. My brother and I were in the kitchen one day as teenagers. He was filling the sink to wash dishes, and when the sink was nearly full, he went to turn the tap off, but it wouldn't budge, so the water kept flowing. I tried turning it too, but with no success. And this is when the panic set in. The level of the water was rising fast, and we didn't want to flood the kitchen. So he took big saucepans out of the press to fill with water to keep things from overflowing, while I was in a frantic scramble under the sink trying to find the mains to turn it off there. I couldn't find it. Now, really panicking, I took over the pot filling duty, and my brother went running off to look for Dad as quickly as he could. Dad came running in with my brother while we were shouting at him about looking for the mains. Dad just came over to the sink and pulled the plug out of the hole, letting all the water down the drain. Story 10. Had a guy in a third-year undergrad developmental psych course raise his hand in a full lecture hall and ask the professor, "Prof, do infants diagnosed with SIDS get asthma later in life? Like, are they more likely to get asthma?" SIDS stands for Sudden Infant Death Syndrome. He just kept pursuing the question, but the prof didn't understand how she could answer it. She thought there was some kind of logic in it that she wasn't seeing. Finally, some girl took the initiative to shout across the room, "No, they are not more likely to get asthma. They are not alive. They have passed away suddenly and will thus not be at risk of developing asthma." He always sat in front of me, and I would see him writing just absolutely horrible poetry and song lyrics. Story 11. My cousin. All through public school, she was a snob who looked down on everyone, and she was super stylish and struggled academically. We graduated in 2014, since we both went to colleges, not the same one. She got a job at a bar and stayed out late drinking. Her boyfriend told her she didn't need to complete college, so she just stopped showing up. Didn't drop, just stopped showing up. Here comes the mega stupidity. Our families live hours away from her college at the time. Her family went to move her back home. My cousin's mom noticed a pile of clothes in the corner and said, "What's that, your laundry? Pack it and we'll wash it when we get home later." My cousin, I kid you not. "You can wash those?" Turns out she'd been throwing away clothes instead of washing them. She claimed she didn't know she could, yet she washed her undergarments and bras without a hitch. She's now at home with her family and has started doing more chores to show an increase in responsibility. She still tries to throw clothes away, citing that she didn't know that they could be washed and reused. Makes me wonder what she thought all those years before college before she left home. She wore some of the same outfits repeatedly. She had to have known they could be washed. Whoa, it's mind-boggling how your cousin could be so clueless about washing clothes, but at least she was keeping her undergarments clean? I can just imagine her mom's face when she found out the truth about the laundry situation. Maybe now that she's back home, she can finally learn the mysterious art of washing clothes and save herself a fortune on her wardrobe. Geez, what a wild story. Story 12. When I was in the Navy, there was a cook on my ship. He once served rare chicken. I genuinely couldn't tell whether he was trying to cover up his limitless incompetence or if he genuinely believed that rare poultry is a real thing. He was dumb enough to believe it. Another time, he just filled a pan with ground beef and called it meatloaf. On a different occasion, he was supposed to make sugar cookies, several hundred of them for the whole crew, without bothering to read the label on the container he opened. And apparently, he didn't taste the batter at any point, and he actually made salt cookies. He used up all the remaining salt in the pantry, and we had unseasoned food for the remaining several weeks of the mission, during which time the captain assigned someone to be the cook's bodyguard. Edits. I was not aware that chicken sashimi is a thing. Still, intentionally uncooked meat and unintentionally partially cooked meat are very different. This was the latter. You can't make salt from seawater for several reasons. 1, there are no facilities to do it on board. 2, no captain would jeopardize the success of a military mission by unnecessarily feeding the crew food of unknown cleanliness. You couldn't just assign someone else to cook. I didn't specify, but this was on a submarine. There are no spare people to reassign, and cooking is already the easiest, least able to cause disaster job on the ship. Story 13. Had a next-door neighbor who rode the Howard Johnsons at the top of our street at gun, wearing a ski mask. Took the money, took off the mask, and was walking home, 2 blocks down said street, when cops pulled him over and found the mask, the gun, and the money. He was wasted and asked them, "Would it help if I said I'm sorry? Got a couple of years on Rikers Island." Came out, broke into a local apartment house, stole some money and jewelry, got stuck out on a fire escape when the ladder wouldn't go down, and he had closed the window behind him. That's 2 stories, I guess. There are a few more, but you get the picture. He did leave me a box of cassettes when he went up one time, among them the Allman Brothers live at the Fillmore. I became a lifelong fan. So thanks, unnamed, next-door, failed rock. He was actually a really nice guy, and like a young Ray Liotta handsome. Just dumb as a brick. Story 14. My freshman year roommate dropped a class because he wanted to play his PlayStation more. It put him below the minimum credit threshold for his scholarships, and his parents owed $40,000. Story 15. My mother rolled down the car window to clean it from inside the car right after the car wash started. Story 16. When I was a teenager, my friend's older brother was one of the dumbest I'd ever encountered. We once witnessed him trying to see inside a motorcycle gas tank using a bit lighter. He assured us a lighter flame isn't hot enough to ignite gasoline. On another occasion, we got into a debate concerning the power of an atomic bomb. He was set on taking out 2 houses max. This man went on to have multiple arrests before I moved away, and also fathered 3 children by 2 women. We all lived in a trailer court as well. Not saying it's a prerequisite for idiocy, but some of us get out, and some do not. Story 17. I once had a property manager, the person in charge of the rental I lived in since homeowners lived out of state, who did a bunch of obnoxious things. My husband and I thought she was greedy and maybe getting money for herself and hiding it from the homeowners for repairs or something like that because of shady-seeming things she would do when we had things repaired. Then we mentioned something about gardening. She said, "You know, I've always wanted to try growing tomatoes and just watering them with salt water. That way the tomatoes would already be salted when you ate them." Huge reminder to never attribute to malice what is just pure old-fashioned being dumb as a rock. Oh boy, that property manager had a truly revolutionary approach to gardening. Who would have thought that watering tomatoes with salt water could lead to instant seasoned snacks? It's moments like these that really make you reconsider your assumptions about people, don't you think? Story 18. I knew this guy in high school who was a huge idiot. The best story about his stupidity happened when he and another friend got pulled over by the cops. Instead of acting like a normal person, he gets the hilarious idea to step out of the car and proceed to run as fast as he could down the block. The cops, of course, chase right after him, not amused at all. He gets a couple of blocks away and decides to turn around, put his hands up in the air, and scream, "Psych!" The cops, of course, did not find any humor in this situation and tackled him to the ground and arrested him. Keep in mind, this was before YouTube prank videos, so he wasn't doing it to gain subscribers or anything. He did it because he was a moron. Please leave your story down below in the comments. I would absolutely love to make a video about them in the future. And also, don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, peace.